Welcome to the Fear and Greed Afternoon Report for Friday the 3rd of February 2023. I'm Sean Aylmer. Every afternoon we've got the 5 stories that happened today that you need to know about. Story number 1. Well, there's a very good end to the week for the equity market. The S&P ASX 200 closed up 0.6% to 7,558 points. Now that's less than 1% below its peak of August last year. It has been quite a 2023 for the market. Today, healthcare and real estate stocks led the way. Blood Plasma Group CSL hit another record 52-week high, finishing at $313.97, and property leader Goodman Group jumped 3% to $20.96. Financials also did well, led by the country's largest bank. Commonwealth Bank's share price hit $110.98, a new record. This afternoon, Commonwealth reports its half-year earnings in a couple of weeks, and investors are increasingly confident about its profit margins. Best on the day was Pinnacle Investment, which bounced back nearly 10%, having been sold off earlier in the week. The gold stocks lost ground with Ramelius Resources, Regis Resources, Gold Road Resources, and West African Resources all among the worst performers today. And the big miners, BHP, Rio Tinto and Fortescue Metals, all fell sharply. Story number 2, the Labor government today said the Medicare system was in the worst shape in 40 years and needs an overhaul, something the National Cabinet has signed off on. Health Minister Mark Butler said Australians deserve access to a world-class primary care system and Medicare needs reform. He was speaking after the release of the Strengthening Medicare Task Force report, which includes 21 recommendations, including one that says allied health professionals such as pharmacists, physios and nurses should be able to pick up more work traditionally done by GPs. Among the central recommendations is an expansion of multidisciplinary care in general practice to combat a rising tide of chronic disease and meet the healthcare demands posed by an ageing population. Funding for longer consultations is another key focus. And just before we leave the National Cabinet, all the leaders, including New South Wales Liberal Premier Dominic Perrottet, signed a statement of intent supporting a voice to Parliament. Story number 3, insurer IAG has warned profit margins have been hit by the Auckland floods and high inflation. It's the second time in 6 months the insurer, which has brands including NRMA and CGU, has missed targets for margins. Boss Nick Hawkins said IAG still had strong brands and was growing premiums, but the floods and inflation are hurting the bottom line. IAG is New Zealand's biggest insurer and has received almost 15,000 claims from Auckland. Its share price closed more than 1% lower, though it was down more than 3% at one point today. Story number 4, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and his UK counterpart Rishi Sunak are planning to go to Washington in mid-March, potentially to unveil a proposal for Australia's nuclear submarine project, according to a report on Bloomberg. Under plans still being thrashed out, President Joe Biden could host the British and Australian leaders, and the Allies are expected to announce their preferred design to replace Australia's ageing Collins-class fleet. The three nations are sharing classified military capabilities to allow Australia to construct and deploy new nuclear-powered submarines in the region. The project, of course, is part of the AUKUS agreement launched back in 2021 as a trilateral alliance to counter Chinese military power in the Pacific. And finally, story number 5, it was another very strong night on Wall Street, with traders increasingly confident that the Reserve Bank's tightening cycle may be close to ending. Meta Platforms, which owns Facebook and Instagram, led the way, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq closed up more than 3%. But after the close, there were 3 very big tech companies reporting December quarter earnings, and they disappointed. Apple was one, with weak iPhone sales resulting from disrupted production out of China. Amazon was another. It reported lower than expected profits, though revenue did beat expectations. And Google parent Alphabet reported disappointing earnings, suggesting low revenue from search advertising. That's it for the afternoon report for Friday, the 3rd of February 2023. Michael Thompson, Adam Lang and I will be back tomorrow morning with a weekend edition of Fear and Greed. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your weekend.